Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me. And I apologize that I couldn't attend the conference. That would be very interesting to be together with you. My name is Ragnhild Broderstad, and as you said, I'm working as a senior consultant medical doctor at the University Hospital in Northern Norway, but also as a researcher at the Center for Sami Health Research. And I am the head of the SAMINOR study. So it is as the leader of the SAMINOR study I'm going to speak to you. Do you have the PowerPoint? Yes, thank you. Next. Probably you know it, but the Sami are the indigenous people of northern part and middle part of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and also at the Kola Peninsula in Russia. So this red area is the traditional Sami living area, and we call it in Sami Sápmi. I'm also a Sami myself, and use my Sami language on a daily basis together with my children. Next. This lecture is going to be mainly about the indigenous perspective in research. And the main question is, what is the indigenous perspective? And how can we include it in the research work? I do not necessarily have the answer, but I can tell you a little bit how we have done it in our center. And it's very important that we can do our research such a way that it is for a benefit and a relevance for the society that is included in our research. In Norway, and also I know in Sweden and Finland, we do not have any ethical guidelines when it comes to research on indigenous populations, but they exist in other countries, like for example Canada, United States, Australia, and New Zealand. Next. The skull measuring assessments are quite old, but the people still remember it. And the research has been like a collective historical memory among the Sami people. The skull measuring were class stratification and was justified on the basis of natural inequalities among groups, where the Sami and the Kven people, the Kven that are the people with the Finnish origin from the Finnish side of in the Arctic, and they were considered less intelligent than the majority population, like the Norwegian population, who were greater than the Sami and the Kven. And when we are doing our research, people still have this collective memory about the skull measuring, and they ask, are you coming to measure our skull? Next. Therefore, it's so important for us, the researcher, to do our research in that way that it can be ethically acceptable. It must, of course, be scientifically acceptable as well. And not at least, it must be to a benefit for the community. Until now, we have had a great lack of guidelines for research done among indigenous groups. However, it is important to have such guidelines implicit inside the researcher's head. And for us, these three issues mentioned here have been quite important when we have performed the SAMINOR study. Next. The Center of Sami Health Research are not an old research center. And it was established due to that the Ministry of Health made a plan for health and social services for the Sami population in Norway in 1995. And it became quite clear that the Sami patients, and it started with patients, had difficult experience when it came to the Norwegian health workers, because the health workers had inadequate knowledge about about Sami culture, societies, and language. And in addition, it was quite limited research on the diseases and the health specific for the Sami population. At the same time, the World Health Organization asked, why do Norway do not have any available data about the Sami population when it comes to health and living condition? This is the indigenous population of Norway, and Norway are one of the good countries to do great surveys, because we have had a lot of surveys from the 1960s and 1970s and until today, which focus on living condition and health condition among the Norwegian population. And previous studies have never been designed for studying ethnicity-related lifestyles. In 1999, it was made a report about ethnic medicine in northern Norway. Next. And after that report, the Ministry of Health decided to found and establish the Center of Sami Health Research. And the main task for the center was to plan and accomplish a study that could give information about the Sami health situation. Because we don't actually know who are Sami and who are not, the SAMINOR project was had to go into municipality where we measured health and living condition both among the Sami population and the non-Sami population, and then we could compare with the non-Sami population in the same geographic areas. And the SAMINOR study is really a rural study. We haven't been in any large cities in northern Norway. I don't know if you can say we have large cities in northern Norway, but Tromsø is a large city and we haven't been there. Next. So when we established the SAMINOR study, we called it after a while for a survey of health and living condition among Sami and non-Sami population in Norway. Next. And we have done it 3 times, but the survey 2 and 3 are belonging to the same time period, so we call it the SAMINOR 2. And as you can see, it's quite large. In SAMINOR 1, we did it in 2003 and 2004 together with the Institute of Public Health, because the Institute of Public Health still did their living condition surveys in several parts of Norway, and they was going to travel. I'm sorry. They was going to travel to Finnmark County, northern part of Norway, and Troms County, and we asked if we could join them on that survey. They accepted it, and in total, 24, almost 25,000 people were invited to participate. And it was not the youngest one, but it was in the age span between 36 to 78 years, and also those who were 30 years. 61% who were invited attended. That's almost 17,000 participants. And 32 of them claimed to be Sami. This is a traditional epidemiological design with questionnaire, clinical examination, and blood samples. And then 10 years after that, or 8 years after that, we said that this is epidemiological design. We can't just do it as a cross-sectional study, but also as a longitudinal study. We must do it again. But then we didn't have the money, and the Institute of Public Health didn't traveling around anymore to sample blood samples and clinical examinations. So we had to do it on our own. And we started with only one questionnaire sampling, and we sent it to almost 45,000 individuals. 11,600 participated, and that's a participation rate of 28%. We understood that this must be in another design, so we started to plan, we planned the clinical survey as well. And got so much money that we could go into 10 different municipalities that also had been included in SAMINOR 1. The participation rate in SAMINOR 2 clinical survey was almost 50% and 66,000 individuals participated. Yes, next. This is a map showing you that we have been actually quite on traveling and been in a large part of northern Norway, also in the middle Norway, and even almost in the southern part of Norway, Røros, that is the southernmost area where the South Sami area is. And when we choose the municipality and the geographic area, we had to use local knowledge. Where do we know that the Sami live? And then it had been a survey or a census in 1970 where Aubert asked about ethnicity, and we also used his survey or census to see how many had said that they were Sami in the different municipality in the northern part of Norway. So we choose this geographic area both by older census and by local knowledge. Next. We have 3 main focuses. First of all, we have to identify the Sami population. And then we are going to measuring health and disease, both among the Sami and the non-Sami population in the same geographic area. And then we have to report to the municipality afterwards. It's very important for us that when we have done our research, we must give it back. So we must give it back to the municipalities and tell them what was the main results. So we make reports that we give them, but also we're traveling around and have these population meetings and invite the population to join us on meetings where we tell about our results and what can be a good way of living, and we try to advise the local authorities of what can be important and not important to decrease, for example, diabetes mellitus, which is quite high in our municipalities, SAMINOR municipalities. Next. Okay, defining the Sami population. That is the core query in SAMINOR, because we don't have any national registers. Actually, I believe that this is a heritage from the Second World War. In Europe, we almost do not have any register where ethnicity is one of the information variables. It's not allowed in Sweden either, so far as I know. The total size of the Sami population is totally unknown, and very often when we are writing our manuscript, the reviewers ask, so what is the participation rate of the Sami population? But we do not know, because we don't know how many Sami people living in Norway, Sweden or Finland and so on. When we are going into these different municipalities, it's unknown in advance who are Sami. And of course, in northern Norway, it's quite common to have multiple ethnic backgrounds. Next. This is an example of how we ask about ethnicity. We made 11 different questions about ethnicity. The 7 first one are objective criteria, as we call it, because we ask about language. Do or did you, your parents or grandparents, use the following languages at home? And then you can mark for Norwegian, Sami, Kven or other. Quite common that people mark for both, for example, Norwegian and Sami, or Norwegian, Sami and Kven, depending on what municipality we have been into and done the research. Then we ask a question about what is your father's or your mother's ethnic background. And then people can answer, as in the languages, the same answer alternatives. And last, we ask, what do you consider yourself to be? And we have quite often people that have marked for Sami on the languages and on ethnicity, but when they are going to say, what do you consider yourself to be, they mark for Norwegian. Even though it's not allowed, I asked one of our participants once, why did you answer that way? Because we were at the stations where all these research were done, and we helped them to answer the questionnaires because it was comprehensive. And one said, well, I'm living in Norway, so I can't consider myself to be anything else than Norwegian. Though I am, of course, I have a Sami ethnic background and so on. So it's quite interesting. And when we are looking into the questions about ethnicity, we can really see the history of the Norwegization process that has been performed in Norway for the last 200 years. It's interesting in itself. Next. Yes. So this is how are we going to stratify then the Sami? And how you are a Sami, or what do you consider yourself to be, differ quite enormously from geographic areas. For example, in the inland of Finnmark, in Kautokeino and Karasjok, traditional Sami municipalities, 90 or more than 90% of the participants mark for Sami and recognize themselves to be a Sami. But if you go to the coastline, this decreases. And if you remember, or if you are familiar with the Norwegian Norwegization process, you can say that the Norwegization process was like a tsunami. It was most devastating along the coastline, and then it decreased when it came to the inland area. It's very interesting because we can see that in our data as well when we are going to stratify into Sami and non-Sami groups. This is a very difficult discussion at our center, and the aim of our research, or the hypothesis of our research, are quite important to look into before we start the stratification processes and group people into different ethnicity. But I'm not going to talk about that now. Next. Yes. And as you can see, the SAMINOR study, we have a large biobank, both with a lot of blood samples and also genetic material. We haven't used the genetic material yet, because we must be quite sure that the ethical guidelines are functioning before we start to see into the genetic area. But we have biomarkers and anthropometric measures. We ask about lifestyle, and so we have lifestyle information by questionnaires. And then we have self-reported diseases. In addition, we can, for example, measure diabetes by measuring HbA1c or serum glucose. And it's also possible to linkage SAMINOR to national registers. We are asked if that is okay for each of the individuals that have participated. Yes, next. Yes, it's gonna. Yeah. Until now we have had this GDIR system, which is European laws, and so now it's a little bit different. But the SAMINOR is a health register owned by the Arctic University of Northern Norway, and through the Center of Sami Health Research. And when we are going to do new research, or we are going to use data from SAMINOR, we have to ask permission from the regional board. Yes, next. Just going to show you a little bit a slide that show you that this is our reports. You can see it down on the right side. We made that for each of the 10 municipalities that participated in a SAMINOR 2 clinical survey. And in addition, we are trying to be all over Northern Norway to tell about SAMINOR and our result, and have a continuing discussion with people, society, local authorities, and so on. What is the benefit? What can you use it for? And what are we going to do next time? Next. Yes. And of course, when we are doing our research, the aim of this epidemiological study is that it must be valid. And the validity is usually assessed with regard to both internal and external validity. And when I'm talking about this internal validity is that, are we really telling the truth about this local municipality? And the external validity is, can we generalize our results into the whole Sami population, or the whole non-Sami population, or the whole multi-ethnic population in the north? Is it okay? Is it large enough? Is our results and findings, is it showing the real world? And in this discussion, we saw that there are a great interest of using our data. And then it became quite clear that we need some guidelines, both for ourselves, but also for other researchers interested in our data. Next. Yes, you can, next. Yes. Therefore, ethical guidelines was a project that started already in 2013.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but your time is up very soon.
Okay. Then, okay, that's okay. You can just look into that. We can send this PowerPoint around afterwards to everyone. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, you have a couple of minutes left if you want to talk about the guidelines.
Yes. These ethical guidelines is a 3-part project, and it ended with guidelines for the Sami population, which has been discussed in the Sami parliament and voted for this spring. And now it is discussed with the health authorities in Norway, and will be guidelines when research on the Sami is going to be performed, not only for the SAMINOR and the Center of Sami Health Research, but all research done actually in Norway, including the Sami population. And that was actually what I wanted to say to you. So if you go to the last PowerPoint, I'll just show you, we have some web connection you can go into and read more about both SAMINOR and the center. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. I think since we have you online, if there are any questions, I think we'll take them now. I know I have one, because you mentioned at the beginning the trust issue. And I'm wondering, when you are meeting the Sami population, what would you say is the biggest challenge when you want to recruit people in the research? Or what are the biggest concerns that people express?
Well, the biggest concern is the trust. And still the Norwegization process are so up to date and still in the mind of people that it is the work that they must have a trust that this is good research and that it will be to a benefit for them. So and some places they are they find it difficult because we are doing research among Sami and non-Sami. And in some of the areas, especially at the coastline, they say, oh, you are coming here and try to make us everybody as Sami people. We don't want to be Sami. So it is the trust both ways. So this history we have in Norway concerning the Sami people, it's quite difficult when doing health research, especially.
And the researcher being Sami, does that make any difference?
Yes, in the majority area, it is make a huge difference. So people attend in the Sami majority area. In the minority area, where the Sami are in minority, it's more difficult because they are so afraid that we are going to expose their heritage.
Interesting. Are there any questions? No? Or here, Simon.
Thank you. Hello, Simon Woods here from the UK. It's really picking up on the last point that was made. I mean, you're concerned to do something which is scientifically robust, but how do you deal with the idea that these categories are socially constructed? I mean, the fact that people are self-identifying as Norwegian because there's some inherent value in being recognized as Norwegian, yet for your purposes that doesn't sit with the kind of science that you're trying to do. So how do you reconcile those two things?
Oh, it's a good question, and you can say that we know that those who we can categorize into the Sami group, they are quite for sure Sami people, but the non-Sami group, they consist probably of both non-Sami and also Sami population, and we are quite clear on that when we are publishing our results, because what are a typical Norwegian person and what are a typical Sami person. So more and more we talk about geographic areas and differences between geographic areas as well, not only between ethnic groups.
Okay, well, I think we need to move on with our program. But again, thank you so much for joining us online. And thank you to the technicians for their help.
Thank you. Bye-bye.